Okay, so I thought I would just done the last presentation. I thought I would just, while it's all sort of fresh in my mind, I would just add this additional piece of the poetry ladder framework, where each of the 4 different stages corresponds to a particular, what I'm just going to call a time signature or kind of temporality. This will make sense on the next slide. So at the sentimental stage, we have the exclusive present, the present that's kind of not connected to anything past, anything, any deeper sense of the present that kind of implicates past and future, and it's not connected to the future. The scholar, which is about it's what I've called the extending or extended past. The censor, ecstatic present, scryer, enfolding, prophetic. So let's go through the first one, and I won't talk for too long for this whole presentation. It's quite a short piece. Okay. So the exclusive present, the sentimental type is focused on their emotions. So they're not worried about the past or tradition. They're not worried about that. And that's why their poetry can be accused of being superficial. They're also not concerned about the future or any deeper resources in the present than just they're like an inner shell in a way, removed from other temporal factors, windows, whatever you want to call it, signatures. The scholar is extended past. So this is where it is the vision of, they're living in a vision that the past had of the present and the future. It is the vision and temporality of tradition. There isn't a sense of the present in this worldview, this approach. The present exists only as a facet of tradition. It exists to be seen through the eyes of tradition, of the past. Yep. And that's why there is this antagonism between the sentimental and the scholar, because the scholar sees the sentimental present, the exclusive present, as superficial, whereas the sentimental type looks at just looking at the past as being unable to really give a voice to the truly present. And then, of course, tradition tends to, this is what T.S. Eliot was the idea, the man who exemplified this, where he tried to find a way to kind of forge the two together in the wasteland, where the exclusive, the sentiment of the exclusive present in post-war World War II England is seen through the eyes of tradition, which extends tradition. But even then, I would say he probably doesn't exemplify sentimental type. I would say that exemplifies the scholarly approach to the exclusive present, whereas other sentimental poets at the time may have just wanted to. This is what the so-called bad war poets did. They just were more of that confessional, personal reactions to the war, which poets like Geoffrey Hill really did not like. He wrote delivered lectures on how he didn't like it. And it's because they've got these 2 different time signatures. So now we can move on to the next one. So the ecstatic present is, this is a term that I've got from Heidegger. Basically, it just means a deeper, richer view of the present. It's not this present that is removed from, excluded from the past and the future, but is deeply in touch with them, bound to them, continuous with them. And it's what the scholar thinks or rather, doesn't think the present is. It's the kind of present that the scholar is blind to, because the scholar just thinks it's just an exclusive, removed thing, but actually there is a deeper, richer thing, and it's from the perspective of the censor that the extended past is actually just is itself just as superficial as the scholar thinks the exclusive present of the sentimental type is. And so there is a real speaking out of something deeper and richer in the present, in the censor. And then finally, we have the scryer, the enfolding prophetic. And I'm drawing a little bit here on Fry and his thoughts on William Blake and Blake's prophecies. But he extrapolates the term prophetic to mean, this is what I've already sort of referred to in this series early on, where they have these scryers have an ability to capture these whole sort of cycles of behaviour, which is understood almost transjectively, right? Not almost, they are understood transjectively. Like they understand the actual external behaviour, but also the subjective meaning. And because they understand cycles of behaviour, that's what they see with their vision, they can they tap into universal patterns that are going to be both past, present and future. And so it's more outside of time. And so it's a different time signature. And this is like I feel like that's really sort of ties it all neatly together, that each of these have these different temporal signatures that they're working with, and from the perspective of each one, the one below them is going to look superficial or just not substantial enough. Because we move from I was thinking of possibly mapping that onto but I don't think I will. I was going to map it onto something that Blake said, but I think that might just confuse the point. I'll just say that the exclusive present is something that's relatively superficial compared to what the scholar is doing, because the scholar is, and you can see how. So this, as I started this lecture series with, the names that I've chosen for sentimental, scholar, censor and scryer, I've used the start of each word to correspond with another word. So sentimental and censor, they start the same thing, because I'm trying to show that there's an affinity between them. And there is an affinity here in the temporal signature. They both are oriented towards the present. And the scholar and the scryer, they start with the same syllables. They both are trying to go outside of time, as it were. The scholar does it through something that is past, whereas the scryer does it through something abstract, where they abstract out enough to actually envision and stand outside of time, which is a very different thing to what the scholar, the man of letters, the academic does. The academic as I said in my last presentation, pays fealty to the vision of the past. And if they critique it in these kind of piecemeal ways, and that it's also kind of conversant with and extending it, and it all stays on the same level, moving inch by inch. And to use a blunt term, to just try and get at what I'm trying to say, there's almost a willful blindness, a willful turning of the eye from the limitations of tradition that the scholar is required to make in order to live in this time signature, because he thinks that it is through the tradition that we come to actually see and understand the present rightly, in context, in proportion. And there's truth to that, for sure, but there is a deeper state that's available, a deeper vision, a more direct vision. It doesn't require deferring one's perceptions to others. So I'll leave it there. I think that captures it, and I'll add any, as I do, postscripts if I feel I need to, but thank you for listening. Okay, so I just wanted to add this on as a additional thought. I mentioned in the previous slide that I quoted Northrop Frye talking about how the Blake is prophetic in the way that he captures universal patterns, and that's what epics and epic poets do. And you know, I am using slightly different language and different scheme. But what I wanted to do was there was another quote that I had in mind as well from Ted Hughes, and the opening essay that he starts his book Shakespeare and the Goddess of Complete Being with. And this is just one quote from a longer passage, and I was going to quote the longer passage, but it would be a few different slides, and I think I can convey the point simply enough with this. So he writes, if this is a living myth of the Reformation and of the English Reformation in particular, the battle between the goddess figure and the patriarchal figure, essentially, I'm being simplistic here, but that's the essence. It should supply Shakespeare with a comprehensive, organic image of Elizabethan and Jacobean England's inner life, because that is, he sort of traces how this battle between the goddess and God, in a way, and between Catholic and Protestant Christianity, each of which view that central conflict from different angles, from the perspective of the goddess and God, Puritan God, respectively. It should supply Shakespeare with a comprehensive organic image of Elizabethan Jacobean England's inner life, its spiritual life, in which case it should be prophetic in a way that a computer model accurately programmed simulates the entire future development and projects an outcome, which is pointing to that same idea that Fry is pointing out, that when you tap into these larger visions or cycles of human behaviour, and you understand them, and you capture them, it ends up being prophetic, because it encodes within it future possibilities and outcomes, given the factors at play and how they've been charted out, and the dynamic between them that's captured in the vision. And so it touches on it reveals how they logically must sort of culminate in a way. And so again, that's that more abstracted, it's simultaneously more abstracted vision, because you can see from standing back at this larger whole, but it's also moving the other way at the same time, in a way, and moving deeper into humanity. So it's well, that's kind of like the stepping back in order to see more deeply into. And so yeah, that's just the little piece I wanted to add on to the end of this presentation.